Good evening, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to TPS. This is the Paradox Series, and thank you very much for being alongside us here. Welcome aboard to the Miami Grand Prix round number 11 of Season 2. Excuse me, it is myself, Jota, alongside Brett Norman as normal, as we have 20 drivers all ready and raring to go for what is going to be a very intense event ahead of us, I'm sure. Brett, first drivers now leaving the pit lane around here for Miami. First time, of course, that we're visiting here, I think within sort of TPS's world. New track, new opportunities all around the field to get their sort of teeth out and sink some teeth into some amazing racing. First person will be none other than Cypher himself, racing for the Paradox Sim Racing team.
Yeah, good evening, Jota. And to start off with Cypher on his outlap for the American round Miami, happy Thanksgiving to all the Americans that will be flooding the chat. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And that goes for everyone in the chat. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Jota, for that wonderful introduction. It's nice to be back together after a few differences in commentary partners. I know it was me and Loveland last week for Australia, and then it was for break week, so it was only one change. It feels so long ago. But yeah, Miami, a new track on the F1 game, and for the first time that we will be going round here in the Paradox Series this evening. It should be very interesting to see what drivers come out on top. When doing my research for this race this evening, there wasn't much statistics to go off of in terms of trying to find out where WOR Tier 1 poles were and sort of aligned tournament races as well around this circuit. So tonight should prove to be a very entertaining affair with 20 of the best drivers on Xbox, and this will be your first time tonight commentating over False Group Esports in the Alfa Romeo team, I believe.
Yeah, FGE popping in there with Flo and I'm going to have to say Trey or Treyart or 8602. We'll go with Treyart as in like Treyarch. The game sort of developers on that one. Just keeping a very firm eye actually on Scyther, as we've just seen on his lap actually. Very, very complicated corners actually around here in Miami. Of course, it's first time, as I said, that we're going to be racing here professionally in the Paradox Series, but the driver's now in the second sector, keeping it nice and tidy as he heads into the stadium section. Does the PSR driver. Now, of course, the hosts themselves in a little bit of a bad form around the sort of esports sphere at the moment. They're not able to get a rhythm going as it stands at the moment, and they've been losing points throughout this season, have the host team, and they've ended up being in a little bit of trouble as we take a very, very quick look at what the current sort of title looks like at the moment. It is mightily close as they continue losing points.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the championship, they did gain 1 point, a smidgen of a margin, 1 point on this last race around Australia, which was fully action-packed. Obviously, not on for YouTube. That was streamed on my Twitch due to issues trying to get into the PSR Twitch, which we can talk about later on if there's a little gap that requires some interlude speaking. But Cypher with a 127.013. Yeah, as we come into the final stretch of the season, it really is time for PSR to put the foot down. Cypher and Nick, arguably their strongest duo. They'll be for ones to sort of guide them and hopefully put a greater margin between them and VSR this evening. NVR Matthew, though, going P1 there with a 26.8, a very quick lap time there for Matthew, a driver that we know can always perform in qualifying, but it's for race pace, it's for race etiquette of Matthew that we're always that seems to let him down from time to time. But when he has that one good race, he can be absolutely on it, and one of the most dangerous drivers on this platform in terms of pace wise, not in terms of racecraft. We don't advocate for dodgy racecraft in these tournaments, obviously, but I think in terms of what Matthew can produce, he will be a very strong driver for Novus Racing, for teams sitting in P6 this evening. They'll be well, they can't really go up in the championship at the moment, with Team Shazoo being 105 points ahead of them in the team standings, but as opposed to what the title fight looks like. It looks to be a two-horse race between PSR and VSR, but don't count out FRA just yet. They've got a few rounds in order to stake their claim, and who knows, providing a few DNFs, a few another continuation of the bad luck of form for Paradox, and FRA could be well within for the title fight here.
Just taking a very quick look, actually, at those standings at the moment. So as it stands, Paradox Sim Racing leading the way on 308. Visceral in second place, and they've been really climbing up the standings. Only 24 points behind now between the host championship runners at the moment in 284, 249 for Fury, and now Fury are another team that have been slowly but surely falling down the standings. They had a really mega start to the championship, and taking the first victory. Of course, that was taken away after a bit of a controversial nature surrounding the qualifying of FRA Matthew, and then they took some big points as well in round 6 as well, and that was obviously, backed off with a really good Singapore as well, but they ended up losing so many points throughout this championship through inconsistencies, and in the end those positions were swallowed up by the likes of Visceral and St. George Esports, who were 4th, 221, and then Team Shizou 215, so mightily close stuff at the moment. 93 points separating first from 5th, and then it's Novas leading the way of the midfielders, 110 from Role Player 1 on 99. And then falling towards the back at the moment, False Cruise Esports. Now, they're in a bit of a predicament because ETA Esports, who've sat in the Alfa Romeo team, their last race was in Belgium nearly 3 weeks ago now, actually. And then, obviously, in Australia, they didn't field a racer, and that ended up leaving them down on -8 going into this tournament. So now they have got both of their drivers fielded, but they're currently on -8 and have got a lot of ground to make up in the last sort of 4 races of this championship, as we just see FRA's Plaque come across the line with a 27-1. Role Player 1 will be hoping to get on the board, as FGE False Group Esports, as we're talking about being on -8, now has a 5-place grid penalty just to add insult to injury, and that is not the best start for Flo.
Yeah, funny enough, an incident with Stonks, and if you look to the left on your timing screen, Stonks is out. He's crashed out in Sector 1, so maybe there has been a case where Flo has actually impeded Stonks, and Stonks has lost a front wheel and just veered into the wall, which would be really unfortunate for FRA, who have been looking to complete the Grand Slam of Xbox tournaments. They're still in the fight for the top tier championship, a tournament which PSR has a very healthy lead in, coming into the final round, which will be next week, I believe. But yeah, for FRA, I think it would be a completely different story if obviously Otis Lawrence was about, but this is a tournament where FRA can showcase drivers that, well, aren't Otis Lawrence essentially, and they've done very well to be in P3 at the moment. But they know they have such high standards at FRA, and they would have wanted to be, much closer in the title fight at the moment. But, I mean, yet again, with 3 races to go, never say never, because we've seen anything can happen in F1, in the F1 esports universe. But yeah, interesting for FGE. They had a 3-point deduction for a late lineup change in their debut race at Australia, and then they got a 5-point deduction for an incident caused at the start line between another driver and I believe it was Shizou Bourbon Boy, who crashed out, well, not crashed out of the race, but had an incident right off the line. Another driver that's had an incident, and another driver that is out of qualifying, is a man in P50 for my timing screen. It's RP1 Teo, and this track, very new track, obviously, outside the Hard Rock Stadium, for the Miami Dolphins played their NFL action. I'm led to believe I'm not a massive NFL follower, but RP1 Teo, this track at the moment has caught 2 victims, and we're only in qualifying 1, so it's all down to the drivers trying to thread the needle and trying to get that pinpoint and that perfect lap time under their belts. But some seem to be pushing the limits a little bit too far, and it's being really costly for them at the moment.
On board with PSR Nick at the moment, as he's now just heading down into the final couple of corners. Of course, around here you want to keep it nice and tidy. He's actually missed his apex a little bit, and a bit of a lock-up on the front left side as well. So maybe not the fastest that we're going to be seeing from the PSR man himself, but he'll come across the line and he will only go P6. But he has gone into a position that is 3 places lower than his teammate, but by only the virtue of under 1.5 tenths. So really close stuff actually. We've got 4 drivers in the 27 ones. So really close stuff actually, as CRT are looking a little bit on the quick side here tonight as well, with CRT's Quantum in 5th place at the moment. Bobbitts didn't set a provisional, he didn't set an additional lap time, and actually he's not setting a lap time on this particular occasion either, is the number 8. So he'll stay down in 17th place with that 154, that of course will not be within the 107% to qualify, as Jam Pancakes is on a lap as well for Alex Dagu's Barmy Army. The St. George Esports team looking fairly sharp throughout this season. Have been picking up points where people have been missing out. So Jam Pancakes will be off the back of a relatively lowly performance in Tier 2 WOR's finale, of course, crashing with his Coca Patriot Clone Troop in the championship, as he comes across line Jam Pancakes and meets with his teammate on the 5th row of the grid.
Yeah, for St. George's Esports, it all looked so good for them in the opening stages of the season. Who can forget their amazing 1-2 in Belgium? And obviously, I feel like I talk about it every race, but before turn 1 at Britain, where something terrible happened between the 2 drivers of Jam Pancakes and McCabe Sam. The consistent duo of St. George's this season have been brilliant for them, and it's been spellbinding to watch at times, but there have been times where it just has gone downhill, and they just haven't hit the heights where they have done previously for St. George's. But for an initial campaign in the Paradox Series, I'm confident they'll be very happy with what they've done at the moment. I've had an opportunity to look back on the incident between FG Flow and FRA Stonks, and if I'm a steward, I would be contemplating whether Flow should be allowed to do the race, in my opinion. It was, to sum it up in 2 words, no, in 3 words actually, it was bad. And to add another 2 words on that, very bad. Flo was just sat there on the racing line after he came out the pits, and Stonks, well, just sort of went into the back of him, and there was a change of direction from Flo, which led to Stonks going into the back of him. Stonks kept his wheels on his car, but then it was when Flo tried to rejoin the track and Stonks had got going again, where his front left wheel was sheared off for the FRA man. So very unfortunate for Stonks, who will not be progressing any further in the qualifying session, and I'm wondering if Flo is just purely staying in the pits as a matter of an apology to not set a lap himself in this qualifying session. But we can't speak for the drivers, so hopefully that's what they're doing. A driver who is on a lap at the moment and on the cusp, he is in the drop zone at the moment. It's LCR Leopard for Team Shizou, another strong driver this season, who has had, I believe he's had a race win or 2 in the Paradox Series. An incredibly strong, experienced driver in the F1 field. You can use all the superlatives to describe him. He has been Shizou's main man, and according to my timing sheets on the game, it is a purple sector 2 for LCR Leopard. So when the pressure's on him, he looks to deliver for Team Shizou. Jam Pancakes retires in the pit lane, I believe, so he believes that he won't be able to get out and set another lap. He could potentially be at risk of getting knocked out if other drivers improve, such as LCR Leopard, who moved himself up into P5, a millisecond quicker than CRT Quantum. I believe the next driver on a lap would be RP1 Noctis, but he has invalidated his lap time, so it would be the Haas of McCabe Sam, who is on an out lap at the moment. Bobbitts is also on an out lap, so as well as Flacky. It'll be an AM driver potentially. It's Sasha Andre O2, who is down on his time by 11 seconds. So just conserving ERS at the moment is Sasha, and getting ready to go for one final run this Q1 session. He's on for car speed, on for cut-off point in P15 at the moment, and with two drivers who will not be setting any times again this session, as well as a very talented driver in Bobbert, who is now just coming across the line, but that was to start a hot lap. Amine is 3/10 up, coming as he came up to the Sector 2 timing line. So for NVR Amine, which feels so nice to say after using for HSR Amine gamertag for so long, he has now progressed to NVR Amine. He will come round the final couple of corners and look to leapfrog Sasha, Andre, and a lot of the drivers that are in that 10th to 15th zone, you'd like to think.
Yeah, I mean, they're coming now across the final couple of corners. He tries to set his initial lap time and try and get out of the top 15, and he certainly does get into the top 10 with that lap time. That puts him 4.5 tenths, so just a little bit over 4.5 tenths down from his teammate Matthew at the moment. Smokey from Scyther, then from M-Racer, Leopard, Quantum, Nick, Piccolo, Plaque. As it stands at the moment, we've got 4th through 9th all in the 27.1s at the moment, who are looking very, very sharp indeed. Are those drivers with Scyther in the 27.0s. Amine with that 27.2 actually puts Sasha Andre down now into the bottom 5. He's a 10th and a little bit under a 10th and a half up now on the Aston Martin. However, the reason why that he was 11 seconds down on that last lap was because he spun at turn number 4. So he ended up getting into that spin, and actually that rear end is looking very, very sloppy indeed for the AEM driver, who's looking to try and get into the top 15 if he can. With JTO 40 in 13th at the moment. I must admit, it has been very sloppy indeed from the Aston Martin, and he's actually going to be at risk, I'd say, as he now heads into the final 3 corners. Of course, this left-hander has got to be really, really up close as possible, but a big lockup going into that corner with that front left not looking very tidy as he then goes through the left and then the right hander as he comes across the line. Will he be able to improve? He will not. He's 2.1 seconds down, and he will have the opportunity to at least have another go at this one, but he is lacking in ERS at the moment, so he is certainly at risk. And then ESV Bobberts, who hasn't set a provisional lap time in the slightest, is still yet to improve, of course. Teo is out. He crashed out after crashing actually where Bobberts was, and he's actually gone purple in the second sector, has Bobberts, by just over a 10th on Matthew at the moment, so plenty of lap time still out there, especially with the clouds now beginning to gather in this qualifying session as well. We are expecting rain to fall at some point within the point of Q2, and then it apparently will be a wet race as well, so this is going to make for some really interesting sort of racing at the first time that we visit the Miami circuit. As he then heads into this left-hander, does Bobberts. He'll want to keep it nice and tidy if he can. Behind him, by the way, will be Plaque, yet to set a lap time as well. I don't know whether he's on a lap though, and the Aston Martin of Sasha is also tucking in behind, and he's actually just a bit under 2 tenths up in the second sector himself. Keep an eye on the Red Bull though, as the ESV Bobberts of Continental Racing again locking up and actually going into the corner quite early, I must say, as he then tries to keep it nice and tidy, as he'll go around the corner to set his initial lap time, able to beat and get into the top 15. He will, but it'll be 14th place, so he's through. But the question is will Noctis be able to get through, or will it be a double knockout for Role Player 1? That's the last thing they need. Sasha's looking a little bit slow, I must say, and I think he has bailed on this occasion, and Role Player 1 have at least got one driver through. Both FGE drivers are out. Stonks out in controversial circumstances as a result of flow, and then of course the AEM driver also out as well. Noctis gets him by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, I think Sasha there, if you just check on his steering wheel, he unfortunately ran out of fuel, so he was 1.5 tenths up at the Sector 2 timing line, but just under-fueled just a little bit, and was not able to set a final lap time in Q1, which will mean that he is knocked out. So FG Flow, without setting a lap time, has got a 5-place grid penalty as well, so it makes the 5-place grid penalty pointless at the end of the day, but it will be him, Stonks, Teo, Sasha and Trey out in Q1. Noctis just about surviving there, so there is one Roleplay 1 driver in Q2, which will make him happy, but NVR Matthew setting for pace early on for Novus.
Right, that's the situation report then as we go through into Q2. Rain inevitably going to be falling, we think, within the next 3 or so minutes. So we'll see if rain does end up falling at the point. As I think my microphone is going a little bit funky. I hope, fingers crossed, we can... Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Yep. So we'll go through to Q2 then. And the rain is meant to be falling, as I said, within the next couple of minutes. So whether that falls in the period between Q1 and Q2 or whether it happens within Q2 is the question. We'll see. Whatever happens, we probably will be on dry tyres, which means we're going to be expecting an influx of 15 drivers all leaving the pit lane immediately. So let's see what happens as we now go into the session, and those rains are looking ominous. The clouds are looking ominous, and the rain is falling. So the drivers, I think we're going to be expecting 15 drivers out very quickly.
Yeah, I think it will just be a case of get your lap times in ASAP, which will be beneficial for the Williams drivers who are at the closest end of the pit lane, as well as for Haas drivers. So funnily, PSR and St. George's Esports, they've got a little bit of luck on their side, and as you see, every single driver trying to get out of the pit lane as soon as possible, and it is both Haas cars that are out straight away on those soft tyres, and they are ready to go and get those outlaps done ASAP. This might be the quickest ever outlaps we've ever seen here in TPS.
I have a feeling as well there may be some racing going on as well if they think that driver in front is a little bit slow. I'm keeping an eye out on Jam Pancakes. He was the first person to get out alongside his teammate as well, Sam McCabe. So St. George have got left immediately and are already racing here with the PSR boys at the moment of Scyther and Nick, who are just out in front. But it looks like actually one of the Alpines as well. It's Novus's Matthew has immediately come straight out onto the pit, into the grid as well, and he's now going to be racing alongside the sole FRA driver Plaque, who's also in that little mix as well here. Now, no surprises here. It looks like straight out of the blocks, McCabe Sam is going to be, let's be candid, the fastest driver out of all of those when they come across the checkered flag, unless any mistakes occur. And St. George are in their best position here. But this bolds the call, doesn't it, for Season 3, assuming that a Season 3 occurs. That's surely, we're going to have to decide. Champions go in the Mercedes, the slowest, or the drivers finishing towards the bottom will be finishing on the tyre, in the team towards the back, which will give them this opportunity to potentially mix things up in qualifying. But the DRS, as you just went about, has been disabled, which means typically the intermediate tyre is now the fastest tyre, and surely this now is the call for some drivers, maybe just come in and get a set of inters on immediately.
Yeah, the track looks incredibly greasy, but that isn't going to stop any of the drivers. They're going to give it their all to try and get some soft, at least one soft lap in, which I think is very bold. That track looks very greasy at the moment, so it is just going to be a case of feathering for Throttle. I've done a few time trial laps around Miami before the race, and I'm not the most talented, but I kept on spinning out under traction many a time in this track. And the guy at the back of the train that isn't a Mercedes of Shizou, it's AEM JTO40, and you'd obviously expect that he would be finishing P15 given the current expectations of how the weather is going to affect everyone's laps. But as they all rush through Sector 2 now like one long train, as long as they can set a lap, I'm pretty sure they will be taking it. But I think a lot of drivers will be thinking that the intermediate tyres are by far the quicker tyre right now, and that they're just burning up a set of softs. It's a lost cause here. NVR Matthew trying to get over to the left-hand side to see if there's a virtual dry patch at all. There wouldn't be, in my eyes. As for Haas comes to the line, what can McCabe Sam do? It's a 134.4. Jam Pancakes with a 134.1. So Cypher with a 34.7. Matthew with a 35.0. Those times are getting slower and slower. Amine with a 35.0 as well. Placky slowest with a 36.2. Noctis with a 36.999. Nick 35.036. Robertson, Quantum, P8 and 10 there. LCR Leopard, P9. Shizuka Piccolo, P13. M Racer backing out of his lap. JTO 40, P12 over 136.985. And those are the only times you'd expect to see on the dry tyres, as there are plenty of cars going off track there. Most notably CRT Quantum. RP1 Noctis is going slow as well. Don't know what's happened to Noctis. He's got going, but he might have been involved in an incident. He doesn't want to crash with anyone, because we've seen incident with Flo and Stonks already this session, and hasn't ended well for either of them guys. M Racer already electing for the Inters, so he's going to try and get the quickest time on the Inters whilst he can, whilst the rain isn't too heavy. But yeah, in my personal opinion, they've just burnt up a set of softs there.
Intriguing scenario. So M Racer came in because he invalidated his lap time, which meant that he ended up delving into the pits for a set of intermediates in the hope that maybe he could put Chen out a lap. But if you're 7.5 seconds to 10 seconds a lap slower, then you're not really going to be reaching Piccolo, sort of 137.1, who Shizuo are going to be losing a driver as it stands, which is not exactly what they're looking for in their particular championship fight. JTO Forte is going to be out as it stands, with Placky also out as well. Boberts, though, and both CRT drivers are going to be through. Now, they've been in the position where they've had a really good qualifying, but never been able to reflect that in the race results. So, opportunity knocks for the CRT team here, with both of them through to Q3. Leopard is through for Shizuo at least. Smokey have got one driver through with, VSR have got one driver through with Smokey. Novus is Matthew and Amine looking very sharp indeed as well. They need these points as we come to the latter half of this championship. Nick also through as well, his teammate in third, and then it is all about Alex Dagu's Barmy Army again, we'll say, then, with Jam Pancakes in first, Sam McCabe in second place. Alex Dagu in the chat, absolutely littering the chat with joyous thoughts and feelings as St. George Esports, as it stands, taking a 1-2.
It's absolutely beautiful. It's a proud day to be a patriot of St. George, you have to admit. As RP1 Noctis, take an interesting line into the pit lane there. Yeah, we'll go for term interesting. But as the drivers look to strap on those intermediate tyres, we will wait and see what M Racer can do. He will be setting the benchmark of what those intermediates can do as he comes across the line to start his hot lap now. In terms of what he can do, not... I mean, with those soft tyres going off very quickly, you would like to think that there is little to no... Well, you wouldn't like to think there's little to no hope for M Racer. You would want him to, achieve a competitive time, at least in comparison, and just see what we can do on those intermediate tyres. It is as he comes to a sector one timeline now, it's a 34.353 for M Racer coming through sector 1, to compare that to Jam Pancakes, a 32.328. So yeah, those intermediates, they aren't going to be a very good tyre for M Racer, unfortunately for him, and I think he won't be starting any higher than P15 this race.
Yeah, I feel like I said, if the intermediate tyre is going to be 7.5 to 10 seconds a lap slower, I'm not expecting him to get anywhere near the 1 minute 37s, as he's actually just invalidated his lap to add insult to injury for M Racer now, as he might not even qualify as it stands. 7 and a bit minutes to go in this session though. Leading driver Jam Pancakes with that 34.1, actually coming behind his teammates, who set a bit more of a conservative 34.4, just wants to get through, and he's managed to not just get through, but as it stands, making it a St. George 1-2, and hopefully they'll be able to replicate that one themselves, they hope, in Q3. Of course, PSR 3rd and 5th respectively, Novus 4 and 6. Nice to see Novus, the midfield team, sort of in there, as of course Matthew, who in the time that we have been in this season, I believe is now on his 3rd team, NVR Matthew, actually. So with Novus, he'll be hoping to carry on that pace as M Racer has just binned it across the line, and that will be VSR's team down to 1.
Yeah, unfortunate for M Racer there, but he's confirmed what we were really expecting there, and for him to start no higher than 15th this evening. So be interesting to see what these drivers on the intermediates can do, but judging by what M Racers times were doing, I don't see much occurring in terms of the rest of this session. But it's always nice to for the drivers to just give it a go on the intermediates at the moment, get a feel for what it could potentially be like in the race. Obviously, we've been told by Mr. Levi in the chat that it will be a wet race, so this could be valuable time for drivers just to get a feel for the conditions that they could potentially be facing in those race pace conditions. But obviously a lot of differences with the car. There'll be higher fuel loads on those intermediates, so quite a few drivers, they might have just whacked the fuel settings up. They might not even be going 4 quali laps here. They'll just be trying to gauge what their pace on the intermediates could be like come the start of this race, which is a tactic that would, well, it'd be a bizarre one, but could pay off for drivers such as Placky, JTO40, Noctis and Piccolo, who we've practically confirmed will not be going any further in this session, just to give them a little bit of time on a wet track to see what they can produce for us this evening.
Just keeping a firm eye on Piccolo then, as he's now coming across the line. Now, of course, we are expecting that lap times are going to be coming in from those in the bottom 5 anyway, and then obviously not going to be fighting to get into Q3, the more so that they're taking this opportunity to potentially just get a feel for what the race is going to be like ahead. Meanwhile, those in the top 10 are going to want to take this valuable time to understand what the track conditions are going to be like immediately, because of course they're going to be racing in them for the fight for pole position. So Bobberts and everyone else out in front are all heading their way out on the intermediate tyre. Now, the only person who didn't actually is the pole position sitter, or rather the guy in first place, Jam Pancakes, but he has just switched his tyre to the intermediate now, so this will give him the opportunity at least to get a feel for what the track is going to be like out there. But those in the top 10 are at risk of potentially crashing out if they're not used to the conditions, and maybe not get through to Q3 at all. We'll have to see. Either way, McCabe Sam just heading his way around the big left-hander, and he'll be tucking in behind one of the AEM drivers, JTO40. We're currently in 12th place at the moment. Yeah, flags wave for a slow VSR Smokey.
Yeah, interesting. I have been watching JT for the past few minutes. In his previous lap, he was 2.2 seconds down his time into first sector. I don't really know what to infer from that, considering he's gone 1.7 seconds down into first sector this time round. So whether he is burning fuel off and getting better lap times in, we can't really tell, but yeah, 1.3 seconds down this time, so he is gradually improving, JT. And I don't want to put a commentator's curse on the driver that I manage, but I mean, it will take something absolutely miraculous sent from the gods in order for him to reach Q3. He is a man capable of producing miracles. He did raise Artemis from the bottom spot before ETH's departure, and he was just 4/10 down crossing the line. I know he has about 8/10 of a second in order to improve against Bobbert's time, but as the fuel loads become lighter and a somewhat dry line can begin to form through drivers using those intermediates. Oh no, he's just gone wide. Yeah, put an end to my point there, as JT has completely messed up the braking zone and will not be improving this time around, which pretty much defeats the point of if anyone could get into Q3 in the bottom 4 at the moment on those intermediate tyres. I think the answer to my own question that I've proposed is no, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, not too long to go then left in this session, of course. Now this is where we'll start to see people choose to decide what they want to do. I think we're going to be expecting a lot of people now coming in, wrapping it up for this session. Quick clarification on a comment that I said earlier about Matthew, me saying that it is his third team in this tournament. It may be his third team in this tournament, but that's not the point. And there's no point in me trying to establish, any kind of sarcasm in that. I wasn't trying to be sarcastic. My point in that I was trying to say before we obviously saw Racer crash out was that skill that he has been carried over between different teams and has actually allowed NVR therefore to end up gaining some pretty good track time in him, and actually him alongside Amine may be a little bit of a, not, I wouldn't say a godsend, but certainly a send for the team to get some big points in this tournament as they try to fight for the best of the rest title, which is, to be honest with you, best of the rest is in 6th place at the moment because there's top 5 separated by under 100 points. Means that anybody is still in the possibility of trying to win this title, especially with PSR's sort of poor form at the moment. Though they're currently 3rd and 5th, everyone on the intermediate tyre may end up bringing some unexpected arrivals towards the front.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what occurs in Q3. 25 seconds left of this session to go, where all the drama really came at the start and then sort of phased out over time. But yeah, it's what we all love to see, a close championship battle in the final stages of the tournament. We go to Mexico next week, and then finishing off with a way that everyone knows how to finish off around Interlagos, and then Yas Marina to finish off the season in the early stages. No, I'm completely mixing up my times. In the 15th of December. So in terms of championship battle, as you've said, it is sort of a 5-horse race for the championship still, with PSR looking to bounce back wherever possible. They'll take anything they can. I think at the moment they'll bite your hand off if you offer them, say, a 3-5 where they are potentially this evening in the race. And yeah, as we finish quali now, Quantum and JT, the only drivers left to either come back into pits and retire or cross the finishing line, means we have 2 CRT drivers in the top 10, 2 NVR drivers in the top 10, 2 St George's drivers in the top 10, 2 PSR guys, and then the odd ones out, VSR Smokey and Shazoo's LCR Leopard.
So good stuff in the end then. Wrapping up in this Q2 session, we have got a very interesting Q3 ahead of us coming up. Of course, the track now getting quite damp out there. The issue as well that people have to bear in mind is that we do end up having a dry spell, be it in Q3 or in the race, because of how hot the conditions are out there. We're in a position where the humidity may leave the track wetter for longer, so we'll have to see how those conditions fare as we then take a very quick look at the standings then, and it is in the end a 1-2 for the team in white. St George Esports very happy to see themselves at the top 2, with Scyther in 3rd, Amine in 4th, Nick in 5th place, with Matthew in 6th, VSR sneaking only 1 driver through in Smokey in 7th, and CRT will be happy to hear they've got both drivers through to Q3 in 8th and 10th, Shazoo and LCR Leopard in 9th. The bottom 5, Placky, JTO 14, Noctis, Piccolo and M-Racer all knocked out as they were caught out in the interchangeable conditions as we head through to Q3. And now of course this is where people will have decided where they're going to prioritise themselves. If we are in for a heavier rain race, then of course they may have gone for the higher downforce strategy, or have they gone for the lower downforce if the sort of slight rain conditions of the qualifying session could mean that a lower downforce may be required. We'll have to see what Q3 brings us as we just take a very brief pause to sort of think about what we've got coming up. Of course, we have a very intense Q3 session with potentially light rain, and then of course potentially heavy rain in the race. That priority is the decision of the drivers around, and usually it'd say you've got to expect the race is the priority here, and the rain is falling, and perhaps a little bit heavier than what we saw in Q2.
Yeah, I think it might be a case of drivers trying to get out as quick as possible on the intermediates before it becomes fully wet conditions. Well, it'll be interesting to see what the strategy of the guys is. MVR Matthew electing for the softs early on, so he's very optimistic, I can't lie, is Matthew. But I think, yep, switch back to the inters as drivers begin to leave the pits for... Novus racing car of Amine is the first one out of the pit lane, closely followed by McCabe Sam. And as all the drivers now start to file out of the pit lane, we get ready for 12 minutes of qualifying action to see who comes out on top and who will gain pole position for the Miami Grand Prix here in the Paradox Series.
Okay then, so we've got 10 drivers all out on those out laps, and actually looks like people are wanting to get out fairly quickly here. Perhaps the raining conditions have started to taper off a little bit, and actually people are keen to get a lap in straight away, and you won't be surprised to hear in the slightest that the first person out there is McCabe Sam again. St. George Esports immediately throwing McCabe Sam straight out there to have a go at getting this pole position here. Now, whether the conditions are going to continue on as they are, whether they're going to get lighter or whether they're going to get heavier is another question, as it seems like NVR and Novus' Matthews decided to stay in the pits a little bit longer here, so perhaps the conditions are going to remain relatively stable, but we do have a bunch of drivers all very, very close and wanted to have a go at this particular lap here. The Quantum is a little bit out of the sync. Actually, CRT in general are actually out of sync here, as they are towards the back and quite a big distance between the two drivers.
Yeah, I think not much you can do really in terms of about that. It's all just down to individual drivers at the end of the day, and I think team play can sometimes go out the windows in situations where there's high levels of intensity, and it's funnily enough, in terrain, will they sink or will they swim? A driver that we know can hit some very great height is someone who is P1 in the driver standings for a large sum of the season, McCabe Sam, and he is the first one on a hot lap here for St. George's Esports. Be interested to see what he can set as a benchmark Sector 1 time. It will be coming up to the Sector 1 timing line now, where it is the DRS detection point as well, but he will not be needing DRS in time soon. There's a 35.228 for McCabe Sam as he comes through the first sector into the second sector, long straight, maxing out at around 205 miles an hour there, brakes heavily into third gear. Does McCabe Sam hooks it to the inside through this tight and twisty part of the circuit, where you don't want to put the throttle down too early and too much and get into a spin. Mounts the curb there, very nicely done. Tight left-hander onto this back straight. It's a 110.485 for McCabe Sam, as he has NVR Amine just behind him, waiting to see what lap he can produce as well. As McCabe Sam, he'll come round for third to last corner. Now comes to the penultimate corner, is the little left tink, and to the right, and he comes to the line. The time to beat is a 1:37.477. Amine comes to the line now. It's an invalidated time for him, but Cypher with a 1:37.515. Smokey going on pole by nearly a second there for Visceral Racing. As Pearson Nick just pulls into pits there. NVR Matthew about to start a lap. Jam Pancakes there with a 1:36.933, so conditions might be improving here. LCR Leopard P3 with a 1:37.306. Quantum with a 1:38.806. He'll be his teammates Roberts next to cross the line for Continental Racing Team, and it'll be a 1:40.6 for him at the moment. So that means Matthew, Amine will be the next car to set a lap time, or potentially McCabe Sam could be going again, just loading up quite a bit of fuel early on, just trying to set some laps in and see whether it's an advantage to have higher fuel originally, then lower fuel over time, but to the detriment of the tyre wear. McCabe Sam coming to the Sector 2 timing line now. He's nearly half a second up on his time, so different drivers going for different approaches here, evidently. I will see what VSR Smokey is doing. Coming through Sector 2, he's down on his time by 2.7 seconds, so he has obviously gone for the one-lap approach on those intermediate times. We will watch Jam Pancake as he comes round the final two corners now. Bit twitchy, but does come to the line now. What can he do? And it's P3 with 1:37.117. Amine will come across the line at 1:37.901. And then Cypher, who has not set a representative lap time, he will not be improving. Same with VSR Smokey, who is going again. Jam Pancakes is pulling into the pit lane. And LCR Leopard comes to the line now. It's a 1:36.682 for LCR Leopard as CRT Quantum enters pit there. So it means Bobbert, who is down on his time, will maybe be going again. Yes, he is. But at the moment, it's first blood to VSR and it's first blood to Smokey.
Yeah, looking fairly good so far for VSRs then with 36.565. However, you just got to keep a very firm eye on the St. George Esports guys. Novus looking fairly good as well actually with the Mine, but Matthew not able to set a lap time. Bobbert's not able to set a representative lap time either, but my good friend Levi in the chat, good evening to yourself. Thank you very much for the insight here, who says that apparently that the conditions may begin to dry up in about 5 to 10 minutes time, and I'm looking outside now and looking at the car, and more specifically the Ferrari, and I'm not really seeing any drops of rain falling now on that Ferrari, which means we could end up falling to dry tyres, but it's all about whether the heat on the circuit is so hot that the humidity remains, or whether the track is warming up enough that maybe the conditions in the dry line may appear sooner than you think. Either way, we could be in for a very mixed bag, and someone may be doing a Rev Caterpillar and coming out of the blocks out of nowhere, strapping on a set of softs and making the right call to go onto a set of dry tyres at the very last second. That is the question here. Tyres on at the moment. Quantum has made it clear that he wants to go onto a set of dry tyres, but immediately switches back to the Inter, so I think he's deciding between which is the best tyre at the moment. His fastest driver so far, PSR Cypher, comes across the line with a 1:36.4. Good stuff from the Williams, as we've got ESV Bobberts looking to try and improve on his lap time. He's 2.2 seconds up on his original lap time. Of course, remember that 34.6 is not, the 40.6 is not a lap time that we provisionally see from Bobberts, as he comes across the line with a 36.9. So now he is putting himself onto the second row in front of the third row sharing St. George Esports drivers.
Yeah, I think one or two drivers, they might risk it for a chocolate biscuit and go onto the softs for one lap at the end of the session. For me personally, I saw a little few droplets just in the pit lane, but when you go on board, I'm looking at NVR Matthew at the moment, you can still see the raindrops falling on the screen. Well, my screen, definitely. Whether it's the same for Matthew, I don't know. This game could have many issues with it. So it might be completely bone dry for some of these drivers. We do not know. But for now, not many drivers looking to gamble on the softs. Oh, there's a lot of drivers that just keep on peering onto the softs, just in case they, just to test whether the Delta times are switching. VSR Smokey doing that many a time at the moment for Man in P2 at the moment. We'll want to beat Cypher for pole position and ruin his Thanksgiving afternoon. So it's down to the American, who is P1 at the moment, against the rising up star VSR Smokey. But a man that isn't to be counted out at the moment is the journeyman NVR Matthew, coming to the sector 1 time line at the moment. He hasn't set a lap time thus far. It's a 34.437 in sector 1 for Matthew, which in comparison to Cypher's quickest lap time, he set a 34.535 in sector 1. So very interesting stuff at the moment for Matthew as the track continues to dry up, and there is a driver who has gambled on the soft tyres. It's CRT Quantum.
I'm almost certain it's time for dries now, as Matthew has invalidated his lap time. The dry line is really starting to form now, and I'm just keeping an eye on Quantum to see how he's performing. You can see he is understeering at the moment, but you can't really expect him to push too hard at the moment, because of course these track conditions are only going to get better. So he has decided to go onto the soft tyre. He's electing in the hope that maybe, just maybe, that he may end up doing a rev caterpillar. Now he's revving the hell out of the engine at the moment, I think, to try and warm the tyres up. The dry line not so visible here at the moment, so he's keeping it very gingerly out there at the moment. So people more confident with the intermediate immediately out of the blocks, but the conditions are suggesting that we should be on for a soft tyre at some point in the not too distant future. It's just whether Quantum is going to have enough time for that to actually arrive, and if the soft tyre actually does work, because of course if he ends up going too slow, the tyres will just get too cold. So he's got a minute to go. He's now gambled, and he cannot come in now and go to a set of intermediates. Now this is the tyre he's chosen, this is what he's going to do. Matthew stays out on that same set of intermediate tyres, as Nick is on an outlap also on the Inter. So Quantum absolutely believes the soft is the way to go. I initially thought that may be the case here, but I can see in the third sector especially, that dry line is not very prominent, and I have a feeling here Quantum might be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, Quantum literally just letting drivers through in the hope that a dry line forms quicker. Drivers just creating gaps so they can go on their hot laps without impeding anyone. I believe McCabe Sam was the first driver to take us away, or it could have been an Alpine. I'm not too sure. Actually, there are more cars on laps at the moment, including another Haas. But Quantum, yeah, he's going half throttle in fifth gear at the moment. He is not confident within the car on the soft tyres. Yep, sixth gear for him. The checkered flag has fallen. His teammate Quantum will not be able. Yep, and he's gone sliding. It's like watching Lance Stroll in Russia. He's just gone sliding off the track, Quantum, and the gamble to the softs was not one that has paid off, unfortunately, for him. So first across the line, it's MVR Matthew, who is on provisional pole. It will be McCabe Sam next up, who will take P3. And then NVR Mine will be the next driver round. He's 4/10 up in Sector 2. What can he do round the final couple of corners? Will Amine be able to put it on the front row alongside his teammate NVR Matthew? We will have to wait and see. Amine doesn't improve, unfortunately. He does improve on his time, but not on his position. There will be a Haas to come round next. That will be Jam Pancakes 44. He's half a second up on his time as well. And what can Jam Pancakes do? Can he leapfrog his teammate McCabe Sam? Can he put it past Cypher? Can he make it a beautiful day for St George's? Comes to the line now, Jam Pancakes! And it's provisional pole for him. But it's CSR Smokey, the man that took first blood. And it's a 1:35.5 for Smokey at the moment. But Cypher takes pole from him again. And it's now down to PSR Nick. What can he do? He's lagging on my screen a little bit there. But comes to the line now. What can PSR Nick do? It's P3 for Nick. And LCR Leopard comes to the line now, and it's P4 for LCR Leopard. So it's a PSR 1-3. And have they put their qualifying demons behind them this evening? Yes, they have. Can they convert it in for race will be the question.
Continental Racing Team Quantum, that soft tyre stint wasn't going to work at all, unfortunately for him, as he comes across the line. Looks like nearly 20 seconds slower in the end, and it looks like to me that the humidity is just too high for the conditions to improve. Now unfortunately CCRT start down in 10th place with Quantum, but Bobbitt's will start in 8th, a couple of positions in front. Amine is in 9th in the end with McCabe Sam, and Jam Pancakes a little bit down the order than maybe you'd have expected him to be, actually, by 1.1 seconds and 0.7 seconds respectively. Matthew is in 6th between the two Germans, 3rd and 4th for them Williams PSR, and then Shazoo's Mercedes with Leopard in 4th. Smokey in the end finishing in 2nd place with VSR. They needed that as well, actually, after the poor qualifying from M Racer. Not able to get a provisional lap time in the interchangeable period between the softs and the intermediates, but it is the American, and at his home circuit as well in Miami. He'll be very happy to hear that he is on pole tonight. So we'll then head through into the race, where we are expecting apparently for raining conditions once again. It's Jacob E66 asking the question of where's Rev. Rev is in a place that's not here. He's not racing for Novus tonight, as I was actually going to say he's in a better place, but that sounds like death, doesn't it? So I'll not go down that route. But Levi made the point, and apparently it's going to be raining, and if the rain is Something to be considered. We could be in for a little bit of a mixed bag, Brett.
Yeah, I think we can refer to Rev as going on a bit of a Mika Hakkinen-esque sabbatical, just off to go find his inner self in preparation for the final few rounds for the home stretch of the season. And that's a lot of rain on the racetrack. Will be interesting to see if we'll start off in intermediate conditions or even for full wets. Very different to the F1 2021 game where you could almost start every wet race on the inters and miss out a pit stop. But looks to be into conditions according to the default strategies. At the moment, you've got to be thinking for PSR, it's prime opportunity with VSR only having a driver in P2 and an M racer all the way down in P15. He'll be looking to make some inroads nice and early with M racer in this race, so watch out for him, I will say, as a driver looking to make his way through the pack. Another driver that will be wanting to make his way through the pack at the start of this race, FRA Stonks, for race winner in Monza. He will be wanting to capitalise after his, well, quite frankly, horrific qualifying incident with FG Flow. But in terms of interconditions, it really is anyone's game. It, really promotes the skill of the drivers in these conditions and, who has the most delicate touch on the throttle of the steering wheel in order to not send your car into a spin or to upset the car at all. And, the opening few laps might be mayhem, but I think once we get into the mid part of the race, we'll see drivers come into their own groove and let the strategic battle come out on top, I believe, in this race.
Lo and behold then, we are just waiting for the initial start of this race before we go into the formation lap. The countdown will be starting at the top in due course. Of course, the Hard Rock Stadium is the home of the Miami Grand Prix. It was a unusual race event in the real-life Formula 1 race, and of course now we head through to this TPS event with everyone on equal cars. The opportunity is open for some of the midfield runners to really pack a punch. Now obviously Matthew moving through to I believe, correct me if I'm wrong again, but I believe this is his third team this season, moving to Novus on this time around. Obviously he was an FRA driver, if I remember correctly, at one point, unless it's a different Matthew, and he is in a position where he now is working with Novus on this occasion. Might be a completely different Matthew for all I know, to be honest with you, quite honestly. There's so many Matthews that I know in my life that I might have mixed someone up that I know in real life, to be candid. Either way, he is racing for Novus. He is racing with an extreme amount of pace behind him, and he is in a position where he is going to be in that midfield wanting to solidify Novus's championship as the team the champions of F1.5, if you will. In the championship at the moment, they are currently 6th and trailing Paradox Sim Racing by 198 points, and actually just over 100 points to Team Shazoo in 5th at the moment. So their main battle is with Roleplayer 1 and CRT. Now CRT have had a good qualifying despite where they finished in Q3. Roleplayer 1 are very poor qualifying, so really this is what CRT are looking for here. They want to race with the likes of Novus, and they're going to have it tonight.
Yeah, I think in terms of that F1.5 battle, I think it's been erased, quite frankly. We've just had, I think we can just call it the mid-section battle now. From now until the end of the season, we will just have to wait and see what occurs. Something that I know that you're very happy with is that tonight we have a formation lap and we won't be going straight into the race, so it just gives us commentators a little bit of time just to get prepped, get seated, get ready for the action, as well as for people in the chat. Good evening to all of you. 5 seconds to go until the formation lap starts, and it'll be Cypher leading us away on his Thanksgiving Day.
He certainly will be. As the formation lap now begins, the drivers are now going to be heading their way around the circuit for what is going to be a little bit of a tumultuous warm-up of those tyres, because you don't really need to warm the intermediate, so they can sort of work at around 70 to 80 degrees, and obviously the longevity of that tyre, that comparable of the wets, as long as that you don't use them in inappropriate circumstances. Either way, that dry line's still not really there, so all of the drivers really got to get used to it. And actually, one thing I do feel sorry for actually is those that didn't qualify through Q1, because they've now got to get used to a completely different circuit. That's those from Treyarch to Sasha Andre, Roleplayer 1's Teo, FRA Stonks, of course, who had that collision with FGE Flow, and the False Group Esports looking to try and get themselves back into the positives, currently on -8 points in the championship at the moment, so they need to get their groove on, and they're not really making the best deal of it at the moment, with FGE Flow taking a 5-place grid penalty, but never really mattered because he started and qualified P20 anyway after that collision with FRA Stonks. Scyther towards the front then. Early indications as we just get ourselves ready as we're halfway through this formation lap. You know, Brett, early indications suggesting PSR on for points to try and gain the points back that they may have lost midway through this season. They favourites, so do you think VSR are going to put a challenge on through Smokey?
Cypher and Nick, two very strong drivers. I think they're going to, going to go out on a limb. They're going to get a 1-2. Cypher will work on something, maybe potentially Verstappen Perez-esque at Yas Marina 2021, and we can see Nick overtaking Smokey in the latter stages of the race to get P2. Or, this is the part what I don't want to see. They collide, incidents occur, sort of like a Raikkonen, Vettel, Verstappen, Singapore, which is what we don't want this evening. But for whatever way this race turns out, it is sure to be 29 laps of exciting racing action as the drivers just get back into the grid slots. FG Flow coming round the final couple of corners. They're rounding off the grid. Jam Pancakes has been DSQ'd, unfortunately, from the formation lap. Not a good start for race proceedings from the St. George's man. But as Flow gets ready in his grid slot, you're ready to go. TPS at Miami.
And the 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a... Go, the drivers, here they are, going down that inside line. VSR Smokey is looking to try and put a challenge up on Scyther, but it's going to be around the outside as he covers off the inside. Immediately does the American, and around the outside Smokey will go, and around the inside he will have going through turn 2, but outside it will be again through turn 3, and that position therefore has been completely conceded. So from P1, Scyther will be happy to hold on from Smokey, from Nick, and Jam Pancakes up a couple of upper position himself, as well as Matthew also gets a good start, but Leopard having a pour down 2, uncharacteristic from the Shizou driver. Noctis is in 11th from Plaquet, and then JTO 40, Sasha Andre in 14th place from Stonks in 17th. He's gained a couple of positions towards the back as Piccolo and M Racer battling at the moment for P15. Good start then in the end from Scyther, already starting to pull a gap from Smokey, but himself already pulling a gap from PSR. Nick at the moment, looks like the front two are really trying to fight out, as we've already lost FGE Flow, who retires at the end of the 8th lap, and the safety cars come out immediately.
Yeah, safety car. Oh, unfortunate there. Piccolo nearly going into the back of FRA Stonks. So I was just keeping an eye on the battle in the low points area. Sasha Andre getting a good start for AEM, up 3 positions. FRA Stonks from the back, up 3 positions as well. FG Trey dropping 3 positions from the start as well as Piccolo, but looks to be a very good start. All level between the PSR men and VSR Smokey. Unfortunately, LCR Leopard dropping those 2 positions, with Jam Pancakes, although disqualifying himself from the formation lap, getting up a position, as well as NVR Matthew. Good start as well for CRT Quantum, just getting up next to his teammate, and well, it's all for drama from lap 1. Just mellowed down a little bit as we now are under safety car conditions.
So VSR Smokey leading the way Scyther leading the way from VSR Smokey, from Nick, then Jam Pancakes and Matthew. Leopard up in 6th place with Sam McCabe in 7th, and then the 2 CRT boys 8th and 9th. Quantum gaining the position on Amine puts CRT in a nice position to gain some good points actually on Roleplay 1. They're currently in 11th place at the moment, and Teo down in 18th. So they'll be getting some points in Role Player 1, and that hopefully might actually bring a bit of a spice to the championship in the battle for P7 at the moment. It's been really good sort of fighting actually between CRT and Role Player 1 throughout this season. It was a tumultuous time actually in Australia as well, if I remember correctly, between those two. So certainly looking forward to seeing what happens sort of towards the latter half of this season, and whether aggression becomes a key factor, especially in the Red Bull side as they try to close down the gap on Role Play 1. So behind the Mercedes AMG Black Series, as Brett looks like he's disconnected from this session, so it looks like we've got the continuous of potential issues with co-commentators, the curse that I apparently have that was on none other than Loveland himself, and he seems to be carried over to Brett, so fingers crossed we can get yourself back in the lobby at some point, as we'll continue on what is now going to be a radio coverage for yourself, Brett. 2 of 29 behind the safety car, and as it stands, everyone's still deciding to stay on that same intermediate tyre. I mean, that's to be fully expected, let's be candid, and I think the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap as it just heads around the final corner before the long straight, where we're expecting a little bit of overtaking to be happening, as looks like people just weaving ever so slightly in one of those actually. BSR Smokey just weaving to try and keep those tyres up to temperature. Safety car surely going to be coming in at the end of this lap, as fingers crossed we will be able to get Brett back in the session at some point as they now head through into the hairpin. Safety car doesn't look like it is coming in. Looks like we're going to be in for another lap behind the safety car around Miami, and that will give a sigh of relief, I think, to Brett as he just tries to get himself back into the lobby. It looks like those technical issues unfortunately seem to be occurring, Brett, and the curse of seems to be my commentary at the moment, as that same issue actually happened with Oliver Loveland, but seems like, fingers crossed, you should be joining any second now.
Yeah, I've just restarted my game just so no issues occur whilst rejoining. I'm very happy that the safety car was coming out, staying out for another lap, so hopefully I can get in before it all comes in, but I am 110% confident that you are able to hold it down with your immense commentary talent. I'm just loading into the game now. Hopefully I'll be back in the session soon enough. This has been your Radio 5 live commentary of AM Brett trying to get back into the session.
Well, we'll tell you what, we'll leave you to it, and hopefully we'll see your name appear right back at the bottom of the screen imminently, as we just see actually under that little circumstance we do have a couple of people who did pit actually. Jesus Piccolo and Treyarch for the FGE False Group Esports team in the Alfa Romeo have both pitted for now a fresh set of intermediate tyres, which, I mean, theoretically, sure, I mean, it gives them a little bit of comfort maybe, but towards the end of this race there's going to be nylon difference between those in front of them, you'd have to say. We'll have to see what happens on that one anyway, as Brett finally does connect into the session. So really good timing as well, because they're just entering into the stadium section, and I believe the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap now, as everyone just tucking in now into the queue, as Treyarch has just managed to make it, and the safety car now going down the straight with Scyther following, and it looks like he's already beginning to hold up actually the rest of the crew, but of course with the yellow light still blinking, he still needs to be within 10 car lengths, and now no longer he has to, as the safety car is now officially coming in at the end of this lap. So, situation report, Scyther is going to try and hold back everyone as far as they can, and it looks like he's actually leaving a lot of space here, and it looks like he might want to go quite early here. And it's going to be a bit of a bold call, I have to say, because of course with those on the intermediate tyres, if you go too early, it can easily spin out, so that's to say the least, as they're now heading down that straight. Keeps it nice and tiny, and he'll be around the hairpin. Scyther does look like he has set off, and he indeed has set off. Heading around that final corner, VSR Smokey not been caught napping in the slightest, you'd have to say. But that rear not looking very stable indeed in that Ferrari. Scyther does manage to get a little bit of a toe out of the corner, and we do go green again here in Miami. And at the moment, PSR Nick looking like he's going to put a bit more pressure on Smokey into the turn one, as it looks like actually NVR Matthew putting a bit of pressure on the Jam Pancakes himself for St. George Esports at the moment in P4.
Yeah, just diving down the inside into turn one there. M-Racer getting all that sorts, which has left FRA Stonks to get past. So another inroad being made there by FRA, who really need to start making more inroads. Drama up at the front as M-Racer is out of the session. He's retired, and that could potentially lead to another safety car straight away. But for the battle for the title, that is huge. It leaves VSR Smokey on his own. for the rest of this race, and with a 1.1 second gap to Cypher at the moment, it really isn't looking like VSR are swimming in the conditions at Miami, more like they're sinking like a stone in the ocean.
Yeah, certainly, as the safety car doesn't look like it's coming in on this occasion, so the race will continue as NVR Matthew is in 5th place, still trying to face a challenge on Jam Pancakes. Looks like he actually put him under a little bit of pressure, actually going through turn 6-7, actually did NVR Matthew maybe have slightly touched the rear end of Jam Pancakes on this occasion, but he remains in P5, Jam Pancakes in P4, as he tries to put a bit of pressure on PSR Nick, as the gap is now starting to form already now, as Smokey nearly a second down on Cypher already, so Smokey's struggling on this initial setup here, as PSR Nick is putting the pressure on the Ferrari, and it looks like to me he's just struggling out of corners, that rear end not looking stable, but Nick also experiencing the same issues at the moment, and actually could be an opportunity for Jam Pancakes, who's actually getting some relatively good corners actually out of the Haas at the moment, going into turn 1 so much later on the brakes, but still hits his apex. He's looking quick.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of nearly moments in terms of where overtakes can be made at the moment. Drivers just trying to get a feel for the intermediate conditions. That was the first full racing lap that they were under, obviously, and it's just drivers just judging their speed. LCR Leopard not really up to speed at the moment, in a world of his own there. 2.5 seconds off of NVR Matthew. PSR Nick though, 3 tenths behind VSR Smokey. He is getting the afterburners on. He is using that ERS. Could he potentially be going for an overtake straight away into the start of the stadium section? Takes the inside line, but he just does not have the ability to brake late enough and get past VSR Smokey this time around, which will leave the Williams man looking at that Ferrari rear wing for much longer. But at the moment looks to be all level pegging for closest that 2 drivers are. It's McCabe Sam versus ESV Bobbert. CRT having a good night out thus far, and Sasha Andre on lap 5 being the first driver to pick up a 3-second time penalty for track limits, which is quite intriguing. But as we come down that large back straight, looks to be all the same at the moment. Will PSR Nick try to get the launch out of the corner? He's virtually burned all of his ERS already. Could he be going for a move into turn 1? Gets the fastest lap off the race thus far, using for it, looking at it, doesn't go for the move eventually, and just Cypher got to contend with that Ferrari behind him for a little while longer. Sure. Nick, he's got to try to find a way past him. Could it be now? He will have an outside line, but no, Smokey just plants the car perfectly so that he can't get past at the moment. It's a very good defending job from VSR Smokey at the moment, but at what point does he start looking to make inroads? He has a little bit of a wobble, which promotes Nick. He's going to use that ERS. They're going side by side, but he doesn't have much ERS to play with, and that is where Nick just falls, and he cannot get the move done past Smokey at the moment, and it's just wondering, did he use too much of that ERS too early? Meanwhile, CRT invert their drivers. Quantum now ahead of Bobberts.
Yeah, PSR will be sort of questioning Nick at the moment. That's the reason why he decided to burn through all of that ERS so quickly, because though he is so much quicker on the pedal than Smokey is, so much quicker on the loud pedal, at the moment Smokey is really, really struggling in out of corners, but then down the straight Nick is just going to hemorrhage time without any power, and he's still using overtake despite the fact he's down to 2 and then 1%, and he might even derate actually going into the corner, and as a result Jam Pancakes might be able to get to closer and closer here. The only issue is NVR Matthew is looking for the move, but he's not going to find it when he's going off of the track. Either way, he stays in 5th place at the moment, and actually that's the only saving grace for PSR Nick at the moment, is the fact that Jam Pancakes is under pressure from Matthew, and as a result of that one, he's not going to get overtaken too quickly. If Matthew was just understanding that Nick was struggling with ERS at the moment, he might not challenge Jam Pancakes too much and actually let Jam Pancakes get closer to Nick, and then he might be able to capitalise on them two fighting, especially with the PSR Nick struggling with ERS. Because look through sector 1, he's just finding so much time versus Smokey. He's got the grip in that Williams, and the Ferrari simply does not have the grip through the corners, but on the straights that lack of ERS is just causing so many problems for Nick at the moment, and potentially causing a risk to a PSR 1-2, which they so desperately need at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of the faults of Nick. There are very few faults with Pierce Nick. He is such a talented young driver, but with that young age comes potential inexperience in situations of high attrition.
Can't find it there, surely.
Yeah, this battery management is going to be his main downfall this race potentially if he just cannot get past Smokey. But to quote the great clone troop in the chat, St George are cooking. P4 and P7 at the moment, which is fine. It's very good at the moment for St George's, who have been on a bit of a underperforming spell recently. McCabe Sam there just defending from Quantum in the battle for P7. But as we come onto lap 8, time has flown relatively quite quickly this race, it feels for me. But Quantum and McCabe Sam is the closest battle on track at the moment, but no move will be done into turn 1. But Nick and Smokey, the move has finally been done. It is a PSR 1-2, and Smokey has finally conceded for position to Nick. And now is it for time for the likes of Jam Pancakes, for the NVR Matthew to get their foot down and try and show that they've got the pace to get past VSR and make the Ferrari's night even more miserable.
See, the issue is that Nick has got all of that traction out of the corner that he's able to pull away, but the lack of electrical energy in that engine now means that he may hemorrhage time to Smokey. One issue, Smokey has been pushing too hard himself, and now he's struggling with his electrical energy as well now, which is now, as you rightfully point out, going to offer opportunities to Jam Pancakes, who's got more than 50%, or just a little bit under 50% available at his disposal. And as you rightfully point out, Clone Troop, and as you rightfully bring in the chat as well, on that one, Brett, St George are cooking here because there's an opportunity for Jam Pancakes not just to get third, but potentially second on the cards. Otis Lawrence, Stonks clear at the moment, as Stonks is just absolutely bang on in that one, isn't he? Because he's just going to show a real pace out there with FRA Stonks at the moment in 15th place, gaining the positions that he needs really to sort of challenge maybe for the points, but he just needs to find that pace. As Smokey has a right tank slapper coming out of that final corner here, and Jam Pancakes under some pressure. Scyther goes fast if anyone so far. He's flying at the moment, is the American at the American track here. Is Jam Pancakes going to go for the dive into the one? He absolutely is, and I do not blame him because he is so much faster at the moment on the throttle versus Smokey. With Smokey struggling with his ERS management, he's only going to cause Jam Pancakes time hemorrhage, and this will be the same overtake again against Smokey 2 laps in a row. And surely Smokey doesn't want to end up being in a position to lose it, and unfortunately he has. He lost a position to Nick on the same corner, and now Jam Pancakes is now not just cooking, he's applying the seasoning.
Oh, that is an absolutely beautiful reference. My friend Jota has clearly been to a Hard Rock cafe or two in his life. He's been learning from Gordon Ramsay. Oh, lovely. Excellent. Oh, I'm glad that analogy got
look
me
at Matthew and all.
Driver. Yeah, Matthew, he's trying to profit as well, a driver that knows what to do when it comes to overtaking. Matthew nearly going into the back out, breaking himself there. Smokey's trying to hang it. He's trying to keep for position here, but I don't think by the time
it's going to fight
we come, we're going barging. We're going a little bit bumper cars here in Miami's car park, and NVR Matthew has got the position on VSR Smokey. I couldn't see much of it due to the cameras that the game was offering me, but Matthew has got the position on Smokey, but you might feel that Aaron Forbes, VSR Alpha, could take that one to the stewards room, and he might feel that his driver's been hard done by. But what that battle has done is has led Elshar Leopard to get into the hunt as well.
Yeah, Leopard's looking like he's wanting to get closer, but Matthew really struggling at the moment with his brake balance at the moment. I think the bias might be set a little bit too far to the front because he's locking up really badly on the front, as is Smokey for that matter, actually. Are the tyres starting to die out, I wonder? The rain is still falling, but it's much, much more lighter than what it has been in this race. So the potential for dry tyres is looming. However, with the track conditions usually being quite warm, humidity is a problem, and that leaves the rain stale on the ground a lot longer than maybe you would expect. As people in the chat as well saying, Alex Dago, this is why the Jam is the greatest of all time. I mean, he's not just the greatest of all time, he's the greatest in the universe of racing any kind of automobile, clearly, by the words of Alex Dagu, because he's in third place at the moment, and actually gaining time ever so slightly on PSR Nick at the moment. Now, Nick has been struggling with his ERS management. He has managed to gain a little bit in the toe of Cypher, to say the least, but in this whole process, Jam Pancakes is already pulling enough of a gap on Matthew that he's out of potential DRS territory if and when DRS begins to fall. As Jamie Johnston in the chat, I'm just waiting for the safety car when PSR is in 1-2. Well, they're in 1-2. When's the safety car? That'll be safety car number 2 of this race anyway. 19 to go.
Yeah, good evening there to PSL X-Ray. There is a drive around, and it is Artemis' Sasha Andre into the stadium section. The only guy with a penalty at the moment falls to last place. And that promotes for driver that Otis Lawrence was calling clear at the start of the race. F-Ray Stonks up a position, and it also promoted RP1 Noctis, but he has just fallen a position because Sasha's teammate AMJTO40 has overtaken him, as well as F-Ray Stonks. Stonks and JT, drivers that have had very good battles thus far this season. JT not looking to fight that one at the road. Just going to keep he's just going to keep a front wheel in. A little bit of argy-bargy there between the two of them, but Stonks gets the better traction out of the corner, and he gets the position on JT, and could Noctis potentially be looking at an overtake here on JT as well. RP1, a team that's gone very quiet this race, and a team that's sort of mellowed down over the season, you'd have to think. They had, obviously, a brilliant start, and I'm just going to cut off myself there, because PSR Nick has overtaken Cypher for the lead.
Here he has, and I'm wondering if that's mainly just an effort from PSR Nick to potentially just stay in the lead and gain some ERS back, I wonder, as Cypher is actually disconnected from the session entirely now, as it looks like we're starting to get some more disconnects beginning to build here, as these drivers are really struggling out there at the moment, as the conditions are now starting to get into favourable territory for dries, because you have to argue here. We can still have DRS enabled if the rain is still falling, if the track is deemed to be dry enough, because if the rain is light enough, the drivers are pulling away enough water that a dry line forms. Race control could put the DRS on early, whilst the drivers still think the intermediate tyre is the choice tyre to be on. That's very, very late on the curb from Noctis as he gets closer and closer to JTO40, crashing into the back of him. Cypher losing another position to Jam Pancakes, now up to second place, as we hopefully can get him back in the session ASAP, because he's been leading this race from the front. And all of a sudden, this disconnect has put him in a serious spot of bother here, as I'm wondering what's going on here, because apparently the stream is now off as well, but I can still see the stream is live, guys.
No,
so keep an eye out on that one.
He means Cypher.
Cypher.
Don't you worry.
Oh, right.
I think, what's happened is Cypher's Xbox has turned off.
Oh no! Oh my goodness me, Noctis! That is an awful incident that sees him out of the race, and that is a safety car straight away, no doubt about that one. That is an awful incident that just got a big tank slapper with a big bucket load of oversteer that sees roleplayer 1 sink down the standings, and that is bitterly disappointing stuff, but an opportunity now for hopefully Cypher to get back into the session. And I think the question that I was asking there about 1-2 from Jamie Johnston, we're waiting for the safety car when PSR is in 1-2. Well, the safety car coming out of this particular occasion has been a lifeline for PSR's Cypher to get into the mix. No doubt surely drivers are going to have to consider a second set of intermediate tyres, because apparently the rain is still going to fall, or at least there's still going to be light rain for at least another 15 minutes. But let's be candid, the conditions out there are surely going to suggest here that we're going to be on dry tyres at some point in the not too distant future, even with the light rain. The issue is that we're not going to be pulling enough water off the circuit under safety car conditions. Wondering what the strategy is going to be here, especially for the likes, surely, of Team Artemis, maybe even Shizu's Piccolo and FGE's Treyarch, who might consider going on to another set of intermediate tyres, because they've got nothing to lose by going on to a third set or a second set of intermediate tyres and having another go at this.
Yeah, the only issue with safety car is Artemis' drivers are the only two drivers with a time penalty at the moment. JT started, he just got a time penalty under safety car conditions for track extensions, which is an interesting one. I haven't really seen that one before. But PSR Nick is a driver that he was pitted from the lead, same as Jam Pancakes. Cypher takes the lead, more like his AI takes the lead, and it's an NVR2-3 at the moment. So the Nath and Jacob Cobb, they'll probably be calling for end for race now, and they won't mind half points as long as it means that it's a double NVR podium at the end of the day. But yeah, seems like the majority of the field have pitted, and it's just the front three of Cypher, Matthew and Amine that have elected not to pit.
Yeah, don't blame Treyarch for staying out, though, to be fair. 10-lap old intermediate tyres, having another go at this one, trying to hold on from those that have fitted the intermediate tyre in the hope that the dry tyre becomes a tyre of choice in the not-too-distant future. While this is all happening, by the way, potentially the AI has massively helped out Cypher here and is staying out on the same set of intermediate tyres to at least get one PSR driver on an inverted strategy with Nick on the fresh intern. This obviously offers opportunity for Nick as well because he used up all his ERS in that first stint, and now he's got a fresh tank of ERS available as Plaque has retired from the session, but he's retired as a result of retiring on circuit at a choice as opposed to crashing. So bold call there from the FRA driver. I'm just having a look at oh no, he has put it in the wall under the safety car. It's embarrassing actually for the FRA Plaque, as unfortunately it looks like Ericsson has hit him under the safety car and he is now out of this race. And FRA, who were looking like they were really making some inroads and making some good pace under that first stint, now have only got one driver and it's the man who's clear. It's Stonks.
Yeah, I mean, something that this does mean is if whoever finishes last, and it's unfortunately looking like Sasha Andre too at the moment, he'll be the only driver not to receive a point. It's top 15 for points here in the Paradox Series, from 32 for the win to 1 for 15th place, obviously. Very unfortunate there for Plaque in another case of where a title, a driver who is competing for a team that has a chance for the team's championship has DNF'd and caused, a huge deficit in comparison to what PSR have got going for them at the moment with this 1-4 provisionally. Whilst Nick is the only driver to have pitted, Nick has that assurance now that those inters will go until the end of the race. Some drivers might potentially look for a zero stop here. I'm not sure whether it's possible. It could be. We've seen some tyre whisperers in the past, some Sergio Perez-esque tyre whisperers. Whether we can see the likes of that from NVR, Amine tonight, Matthew, or the AI of Cypher. Cypher's AI might just be treating his tyres absolutely beautifully at the moment. But how are we to know? Under safety car conditions at the moment, as the drivers just look to get back, Sasha Andre's got 10 seconds to catch up. But potentially safety car could be in this lap, and we could be led away by Cypher's AI.
I doubt it. I think we're going to have at least another lap behind the safety car, and I hope anyway, that invites are being sent out left, right and centre for Cypher here to at least try and defend this one from NVR's Matthew and Amine, because they'll want to know how the hell they're in this position here. As actually, it looks like Matthew's getting a little bit of pickup on that front right tyre, which is just discarded rubber, which is usually an indication that the rain is not washing away the pickup anymore, which means that the safety car is now coming in at the end of this lap in shocking circumstances. I think that maybe Sasha managed to get to the back just in time. But what it does mean is now Cypher is at serious risk of being overtaken very quickly here, but the three drivers in front are all on old intermediate tyres. If Cypher can get in quick enough, he might have a chance of being able to defend at least third place from, guess who? His teammate, who's going to be falling behind from Jam Pancakes and VSR Smokey, and of course do not ever discredit Shazoo's LCR Leopard. So Cypher is going to be leading from the front, or at least his AI is going to be leading from the front here, as he now pulls away, and actually his AI has caught Amine napping, but he's not caught Matthew napping. As we go green again in here in Miami, Matthew immediately makes the overtake going into turn 1, and Novus have a driver leading for I think the first time in a very, very long time in this season here, as it looks like NVR's Amine is actually battling with PSR Nick, who gets a real tank slapper, but very well caught indeed as he tries to continue on in that battle. Jam Pancakes just holding off a little bit.
Yeah, terrible restart there for Shazoo Piccolo, who's fallen back to the bottom of the grid. Sasha Andre getting past FRA Stokes there in the battle for the minor places. Lots of drama going down at the back, but Jam Pancakes nearly a 10th away from PSR Nick there. Looks to be all going on up at the front of the grid at the moment. NVR Matthew taking the lead there for Novus Racing with Amine. He'll be looking to overtake Cypher immediately. PSR, you will have my assurance that I have invited Cypher about 12 times now give or take, as Trey goes off track there for Garden for used intermediates, who has already pitted, has allowed ESV Bobbers to go through and get for position. Meanwhile, Amine gets past the AI of Cypher. It's a Novus Racing 1-2. Nick gets past Cypher's AI as well, and Jam Pancakes will be next. You'd have to think. But yeah, this will leave Cypher in such a bad position. You know, this has gone from a great Thanksgiving to an absolutely terrible one for him, and I wish we can see him back relatively soon as Jam Pancakes gets past him.
Wow.
Oh yeah, everything going on up front, including PSR Nick versus MVR Mine. Cypher AI now pits as soon as the safety car comes in. But Nick, to the inside of turn one, is able to brake so much later. Amine will try and hang it round the inside, but Nick, he just has that ability. But what Amine has done has produced a 2.3 buffer to Matthew from Nick now. So it will just be a case of Nick trying to hunt down Matthew before he pits.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on that little one with Nick at the moment. Then he's managing to pull away quite quickly versus Amine. So 3-lap old Inter's working really well versus the 15-lap old intermediates on Amine, and Matthew's car is Jam Pancakes already putting pressure now on Amine. Novus tried to make these intermediates work to potentially a dry spell, but the rain is still falling, and Jam Pancakes getting closer and closer. Overtake available. He could brake so much later as well than this Alpine, which means he can do exactly this. A dive down the inside line at the end of that DRS straight. With no DRS available, of course, he's still trying to hold on around the outside and have the inside of the intersection heading into the corner, and he's actually getting squeezed at the moment. Is Jam Pancakes versus Amine, and that might cause a collision. It certainly has, but in that one, Amine is trying to squeeze as much time as he can out of these tyres, and that's a collision involving Pancakes, and he's going to get the inside line as a result, and he's going to certainly get a lot more traction. Smokey might also try and get in this mix as well as the Ferrari power unit in the back of that, roaring away down the straight. And actually looks like he's got a lower down 4 setup on here, because he's trying to go for the both of them here. He's going to go down the inside line, the 3 wide into the corner. Smokey in the end electing not to challenge that one. Jam Pancakes makes the move, and Amine is under pressure from Smokey immediately, tries to get the power down early, and actually might have cost him a bit of time as a result. He stays behind Amine, and he might have to make the dive going into turn 1, and that's what he's going to look for, as it got Leopard also trying to breathe down the neck here, as Smokey's going to go down the inside line. He needs to get the move done down the inside line. Amine has got no traction left on these intermediate tyres. He gets into a collision with Leopard as well. He's now down to 6th and maybe potentially 7th. The CRT trying to get in the mix as well. Good points on the board for them.
Yeah, McCabe Sam is trying to take 7th from Quantum. However, McCabe Sam, he is a driver that has been looking to keep on top of that driver's standings or within for driver's title fight, but just hasn't been possible for him thus far. Unfortunately, Cypher will not be rejoining us today because his dad made him turn off his Xbox for Thanksgiving, which is so unfortunate for the driver who was winning for race at one point. Unfortunately, we will no longer be seeing Cypher this session, so unfortunate for PSR. But if another driver retires, he does get a point, so there is potential for Cypher to get a point here this evening. But CRT Quantum against NVR Amine seems to be the battle that's going on at the moment. It is the Amine train for Belgian Hero for Novus Racing. Just on those 16-lap-old tyres, PSR Nick has made great inroads on NVR Matthews' lead as well, which has left Jam Pancake in the dust, or more likely in the spray of PSR Nick. Quantum tries to dive it down the inside of Amine. A little bit of tyre banging going on between the two of them, but Quantum will hang it round the outside, round the final corner onto the start of the lap. Amine will drop another position as he won't have the ability to brake later into turn 1. Is McCabe Sam going for an overtake here? No, he isn't. But ESV Bobbert is a man that might be looking to take inspiration from his teammate Quantum and get past that Novus driver of Amine. But first, you have to get past the English defence force of McCabe Sam.
Keeping a very firm eye on that little challenge towards the front, as well as PSR Nick is making some massive inroads at the moment on Novus's Matthew. Novus made a bold call to stay out on those old intermediate tyres, and it's working so far for one, but it's definitely not working for the other. 17-lap old intermediates are going to get close to boiling point, you have to say, towards the end of this race, because they've still got to go another 11 laps as it stands. PSR Nick getting very close as they enter into the stadium section. He'll hold off from an attack, but surely going into the straight, he's going to have so much more traction versus the Alpine that PSR at least will be on for a singular, at least for the singular driver on the podium. And Mine gets a 3-second time penalty for his troubles for track extension problems, as well as Teo and JTO40 getting into a battle here. Here comes PSR Nick, then Stonks also a 3-second penalty as well. It's the Tier 2 WR champion as well, FRA Stonks, and then goes for the late breaker down the inside line for PSR Nick. He's got the traction, and Matthew definitely doesn't. He's going to try and hold on around the outside line, but then that is where the wet stuff is, and they're going to get onto the curb, and he might beat it ever so slightly. He has to leave off, and Nick will have the lead of this race. And now he's going to hold on to the inside line. Matthew might go for a late around the outside, but the lack of traction means he's not going to get the power down so quickly on the rear, and that is only going to allow Nick to slowly but surely pull away. And look at that, that is just awful traction at the moment on Novus's Matthew at the moment. And now this is where we're going to start to see the fall of Novus's performance in this race here, and he's going to try and hold on for the podium, but Jam Pancakes is gaining quickly. 10 to go.
Yeah, very interesting manoeuvres there, referred to in the F1 community as the bump and run. Often used as a NASCAR term, I am led to believe. But it has led to PSR Nick taking the lead, and in the midst of all that, the Cape Sam getting past NVR Amine as well. A lot of 3-second penalties starting to fly in. Amine got his 3-second penalty a couple laps ago. FRA Stonks as well. So that means 5 drivers on 3-second time penalties for track extensions at the moment in this race. So what can we see at the moment in terms of on-track battles? The closest one seems to be ESV Bobbert against, you can probably guess who, it's NVR Amine. As we come onto the back straight, surely this is where Bobberts will have superior traction. He's using a lot of energy recovery system battery, and will he go for the overtake here? It might just be a little bit too far away for Bobberts. Jam Pancakes there, getting past Matthew. The decision to stay out not looking to be a beneficial one for Novus, as Matthew tumbles down the order another position. He will try to fight it back against Jam Pancakes, but looks to be a solidified P2 for England's finest.
Yeah, St George Esports will be happy to know they've got at least one driver on the podium. McCabe Sam trying to find the inroads on the likes of Quantum and Leopard, Smokey in fourth, and then Matthew in a bit of a predicament now. Obviously 19 lap old intermediate tyres, and he's already struggling with 9 laps to go. 28 lap old intermediate tyres at the end of this race is going to leave him in a very precarious position now. According to my graphic on my screen, he's currently at 57% wear, which may be wrong, may be right, but if it is 57% wear with 9 laps to go, he's actually in puncture territory towards the end of this race, which may see him fall even lower than where he currently is at 3rd place at the moment. Now, of course, he thinks he's in a position to be able to hold on to a podium at the moment, but with those tyres falling off the cliff very quickly, that might be a precarious position to say the least. Bobberts is now battling at the moment with Amine as he tries to go around the outside, and he's going to clip the wall, is Amine, and trying to defend here from Bobberts, and he's now relegated to 9th place, as now his nearest rival is Treyarch. Now the difference here is Treyarch's on 17 lap old intermediate tyres, and that is now purely going to be a battle for the attrition really on that tyre percentage graph. At the moment 51% wear is the highest I've got on Treyarch, and it's down to 49 apparently. This is what I'm saying, unreliable data, but whether it's somewhere in the 50s I imagine at the moment for Treyarch, and if that is the case, Matthew and Amine are in trouble towards the end of this race, surely.
Yeah, it is going to be the battle of the men with no tyre life, no ERS and Trey. No! Oh no, it's gone from bad to worse for PSR. Jamie Johnston, PSR Wexrow. He wondered where the PSR 1-2 safety car would come from. It's unbelievable. I will invite Nick back to the session straight away. Where are you, PSR?
See, the issue is as well, while you do all of that one on Brett, the issue is we've seen Nick lagging all the way through this session, haven't we? So we're in a situation where PSR have selected an American driver on Thanksgiving to race, and PSR Nick, who has had a poor internet connection throughout this event, and that is surely going to be a question of the management at PSR to decide who they wanted to race tonight, because then here comes PSR Nick now back in the session, but Jam Pancakes is going to be pushing very hard here, because if he can get in front of this Williams driver, who is going to be slow through this stadium section, is going to offer an opportunity for Jam Pancakes to essentially run this race from the front and effectively put Nick under pressure. There he goes. Jam Pancakes now leads for St. George Esports, and Nick is about to lose a position to Novus's Matthew as well, who is on the old intermediate tyre. There he goes. Nick rejoins in the session behind a 20-lap old intermediate tyre and behind Jam Pancakes. He knows he needs to get this move done, and he needs to get it done now if he wants to try and challenge for the race victory again. Down the inside line the PSR driver goes, but he's going to lose time being offered the wrong side of that corner to Jam Pancakes. Gap 1.67 to go.
Yeah, Jam Pancakes will be thanking his lucky stars as he leads for Miami Grand Prix. This could be yet another wonderful night, a day in Miami, a wonderful day for St. George's, but it doesn't end at lap 22 unless you're in Belgium. It ends at lap 29, and PSR he's got to do whatever he can to make the inroads on Jam Pancakes, but as we saw earlier on in the race, hits for ERS management that could come back to bite PSR Nick come the end of the race, because he's using as much as he can at the moment. He's drained all his battery already. RP1 Teo there with another 3-second time, no, his first 3-second time penalty of the evening, which means drivers 9th down to 14th all holding 3-second time penalties, and it could mean that Shizu Piccolo could benefit greatly come the end of this race, gain a few positions should he not pick up a penalty. But at the moment, Nick is trying his hardest to make inroads on Jam Pancakes, but I think as long as the St. George's man does what he does best, the TSRL champion from back in the day, he will be taking home another win for St. George's Esports this season.
He's pushing hard, is Nick, to be fair to him, and he's managed to breach the 1-second gap on Matthew, but Matthew gaining on the straights here, so clearly lower downforce set up on for Matthew, which is only going to harm his tyres even further. They are shredded at the moment, apparently, and now into the 60s for Matthew with 6 laps to go. It's going to be a very difficult one for Matthew towards the end. He might just get away without a puncture or without being in the puncture territory, but the cliff edge is certainly going to be close here for the Novus driver as he tries to hold on from the podium, but in doing so, of course, he's holding back everyone else from the likes of PSR Nick, who's still not making any traction on Jam Pancakes, who's had a very, very poor turn 6 and nearly put it in the wall, in fact, actually, as I'm sure the rest of the team have seen Alex Dago going absolutely mental in the chat saying, come on Jam, you specimen. Well, you're going to have to give him a little bit more support than that one, my friend, because he is really starting to struggle, and I think he's already starting to feel the pressure here from an attack from PSR Nick. The only issue is Nick is still lagging, and he's lagging quite badly, and that could put him at risk of another disconnection from this event. If that happens, it's almost certain that St. George Esports might hold on, assuming, of course, Jam Pancakes doesn't continue to make mistakes as he did. Nick now in DRS, of course, DRS not available as it stands, but with the rain really starting to lighten up here, surely at some point we're going to see DRS enabled. I'm already seeing a dry line beginning to form in the first sector. Second and third looking still a bit precarious. Teo now up to 10th in that battle with Tryout, who's now on 20 lap old intermediate tyres, but it's unlike the Novus crew who are trying to be heroes at the moment. Amine in 9th on 22 lap olds, the same as Matthew, holding on ever so slightly to third, but he's surely at risk of an overtake. But Smokey, as we've seen him earlier on in this race, now without ERS himself, for 3, 2 and 1% ERS going into the corner, and with Matthew with a lower downforce setup, he stays in third.
Yeah, this is going to be an NVR masterclass of treating the tyres like a newborn baby, quite frankly. But something that we did mention earlier on in the race that's just come to my mind is the amount of times that NVR Matthew was locking up. Meanwhile, Stonks and Trey switching positions there for FGE and for FRA man, for sole FRA runner and for sole FGE runner. Stonks has already had a run-in with an FGE man today. Now he's ready to go to war with the second one. Trey, on those older tyres, has got the move back on Stonks, but he is looking to keep his wheel in here. Stonks dives to the inside and gets the move done, but Trey will have the inside again, but it means Stonks get the position purely based out of traction, and that will lead JT040 as the next man to overtake Trey in a race which has been quite, how to put it in a nice context. It's been underwhelming but still positive. For Artemis will still pick up points, but only very minor points come the end of the race should everything stay like this.
Official word there from the AM manager there, saying that it's been disappointing but nonetheless a positive way forward as they continue on in their form 13th and 14th respectively. Keep an eye out on then Smokey, who's really started to make some inroads now on Matthew. The only issue is I think he's had to sort of put the step on now because Leopard and Quantum are really putting the pressure on themselves now in 5th and 6th place respectively. They're going to want to get past Matthew if they possibly can, with 4 laps to go at the point of Jam Pancakes coming across the line. At the moment he's still under pressure from PSR Nick, who's found 3/10 in the last lap alone now, as PSR are looking to try and at least reclaim the victory that they were they were fighting for through Cypher, that Nick tried to get then potentially lost as a result of a disconnect, and now he's really is pushing, but he's getting big tank slappers at the moment, and he's now doing the characteristic Nick thing. He's out of ERS. Jam Pancakes on the other hand has a little bit to spare. That's going to help him down on the straights. Nick is not quick on the straights. He's got a higher downforce setup. That's why we're seeing him so good through the corners. But on the straights, with a lack of ERS as well, he may be in trouble in trying to not just attack the Jam Pancakes. If he does manage to get in front, he may not be able to defend from it.
Yeah, I think for Nick at the moment, all he can do is just put pressure in the corners and try and force a mistake through there. But Jam Pancakes, he's so established, he's so experienced as well as a driver that he will have seen drivers like Nick in the past, and he will see drivers like Nick long into the future. But Nick, he's been on such a good reign of form at the moment, winning in WR Tier 1 this week around Brazil, as well as setting for pole position time. Meanwhile, at the back there, JT040 and Trey switching position. So Trey, for the FG man, he's trying to get points on the board for FG to try and get him out of the negatives. Might be worse off after Flo's incident in quali with Stonks, but that will be decided in the stewards room, you'd have to believe. But Quantum, Quantum for P5 against LCR Leopard. It's Mercedes against Red Bull, and Honda Power wins out this time out. And Quantum has he went to ET8, he rejoined CRT, but Leopard to the inside.
Good
Can he get it done? He cannot, because as Jota said, outrageous switchback, but Quantum goes off the road there, potentially picking up a warning. And was that leaving track and gaining an advantage? I do not know, but LCR Leopard's going to dive down the inside. Is it potential for another switchback? No, it's not. LCR Leopard reclaims the position.
He's usually a very, very smooth and very ice-cold driver as LCR Leopard, but I had a sense of maybe he was just cracking a little bit there. The usual cold, nice ice exterior that we'd expect from LCR Leopard is just cracked a little bit there, because that switchback from Quantum was so smooth, and I think an ever so slight collision on the back basically put Quantum at a disadvantage there, and I think CRT wouldn't mind actually sticking that to the stewards, to be fair, saying, to be fair, he nudged me and that put me off of the track, so maybe I lost an advantage going through the corner, as Nick has now gained a 3-second penalty for track extension issues. He's now be the person under pressure, and that might just allow Jam Pancakes a little bit of a sigh of relief, because the nearest driver to them is in 3rd place, and he's on 25 lap-old intermediate tyres, which, according to my screen as it's just loading now, is now at 63% wear, so he might just get away without a puncture or being in a puncture territory, but he's certainly going to be at the knife's edge here, as Quantum is still putting pressure on LCR Leopard for Shazoo, and straight down the inside line he will try to switch back, but Quantum stays in 6th. CRT are having a really good race here tonight, with Bobbitts in 8th as well, and actually is putting a bit of pressure on Sam McCabe himself as well at the moment. Same age-old intermediate tyre. The only difference, of course, is Bobbitts has been using his ERS a lot more than McCabe Sam has. 2 laps to go.
Yes, if you're a betting man, I'm personally not myself, but cash out is now suspended if you're betting on Jam Pancakes to win the race, in my opinion, because with that 3-second penalty to Nick, Alex Dagu in the chat saying, no way, yes way this evening, Mr. Alex Dagu, you are the head of inspiration for St. George's Esports, and you may have potentially inspired your man, Jam Pancakes 44, to another victory in the Paradox Series this evening. Nick, he's trying to do whatever he can to get the win on track and potentially get a warning removed in the steward's room. We will have to wait and see if that is his strategy. But Jam Pancakes, he's not put a foot wrong this race at all. And quite frankly, this would be a deserved race win for Jam Pancakes. It'd be a deserved race win for either of these two drivers. But I think for the storyline aspect of Jam Pancakes, of St George's as a whole, it would be so beautiful to see them on top this evening for Haas. And PSR Nick, let's not, let's be honest, he has put in one hell of a performance. He's been disconnected. He's lost his teammate.
Oh my goodness me! Collision involving NVR Matthew and VSR Smokey. Excuse me, is now offering opportunities potentially for Quantum and Leopard, but a massive tank slapper has now given Quantum the position, or given Leopard the quick position back on Quantum, which means now in that little collision there, Smokey went for the inside line. Matthew looked like he went and said, no, that's my corner, and he got into a little bit of a pit maneuver in the end, and now NVR's Matthew is 5.5 seconds back from second place and still holding on to third place despite being on 27 lap-old intermediate tyres. And suddenly what looked like to be a serious problem here for Matthew may have actually turned out to be gold as we go around the track for the penultimate time. And in this one, very briefly here, Brett, we're in for a bit of a treat for who's going to get that final spot on the podium.
Yeah, we are in for an absolute grandstand finish here at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Do drop us a subscribe if you are new to the Paradox Series. It is greatly appreciated after all. But it is for battle for the final place on the podium. So many storylines in this penultimate lap. Is it NVR Matthew for Tyre Whisperer on 27 and 2/3 lap old tyres now? He's had a few safety cars just to nurse the tyres a little bit, but still to achieve a nose stopper and still setting green sectors himself 2/10 up on his quickest lap time of the race. The rain has definitely stopped a little bit. It is still falling at a minute rate, but as Jam Pancakes 44 leads us onto the final lap, it looks to be a done deal just in case Jam Pancakes doesn't have an incident. It looks to be a done deal, and it could be for race win for St George's Esports. God save the King, and it will be a wonderful night for all that support St George. But it is the battle for the final place on the podium that we are all looking at the moment. It's NVR Matthew versus VSR Smokey versus LCR Leopard, but Smokey is 9/10 away. He has just bridged closed the gap to 7.5 tenths. But this final lap, these final two sectors will be absolutely crucial for NVR Matthew, as well as his teammate NVR Amine, who has picked up a penalty. Shizu Piccolo has left the session, which is so unfortunate for him. He was going to benefit so much from positions in the penalties, but Matthew has put the foot to the floor. He's got 30% of ERS left, 35 now. And as he comes through the stadium section for tight, twisty section, he has that ERS at play. Smokey, he only has 8% of ERS, 10% now, and it looks to me as if Matthew has done the unthinkable, has done the no-stop, and he will come home to take a podium. RP1 Teo with another 3-second time penalty to his name this evening, unfortunately for him. That will drop RP1 down for standings a little bit more in terms of points total. But coming round the final corner now, it's St George that are on top this evening, as it's Jam Pancakes 44 who takes the win for St George's. Here's Sonic, spins across the line, and NVR Matthew, who does for no stopper, takes a podium for Novus. VSR Smokey takes P4, with LCR Leopard taking P5. CRT Quantum and ESV Bombers having a very good race. 6th and 8th for them respectively. So Jam Pancakes teammate McCabe Sam taking P7. And NVR Mine on for no stopper as well, taking P9. With Stokes taking P10. Teo taking P11. JTO40 P12. Piccolo, who didn't take any time penalties to his name this evening, gets promoted to 13th, with Sasha Andreo 2 in 14th place.
Yeah, and in the end, a really, really impressive race from the St. George driver. Everything fell in his favour, and unfortunately for PSR, the continued form doesn't fall in the way that they wish to see, with one driver not being appropriately fielded, shall we say, considering that the current circumstances over in America at the moment. Thanksgiving meant that he could not complete the race. The other driver with issues with his internet connection forced him to potentially lose this race. In the end, it will be St. George Esports who now takes their first win under King Charles III, and will be a win throughout the season. And actually, that means they'll be taking wins for both Monarchs throughout this season as well, which obviously will feel very nicely indeed for the St. George Esports team. So they take that top step. We'll very briefly go through those final results, and in the end, it is a race victory for Jam Pancakes, with the race victory and taking a solid chunk of points for the team in fourth place in the standings. PSR Nick in the end finishing in second place and with the fastest lap. Matthew finishes in third, and the unthinkable no-stop strategy working a treat for the Novus driver. Smokey finishing in fourth, with Leopard in fifth, Quantum in sixth, Sam McCabe in seventh place for St. George. Red Bull will be happy with a sixth, eighth in the end for CRT, with Boberts in eighth. Amine finishing in ninth place. The no-stop not working so well for him. Instead, there'll be some good feedback, I think, between the Novus team to think about what happened on that one. Stonks in the end finishing in the top 10. Teo in 11th, with JTO 14 and 12th, Piccola in 13th, Sasha in 14th place. And then, of course, towards the back, you've got the rest of the field, with Scyther out, Treyarch finishing in 15th, Placky, Noctus, M-Racer and Flo ending their races earlier than anticipated. That is it for this race in Miami, and what a race it has been indeed. Very much looking forward to seeing what we've got coming up for the rest of this season. But nonetheless, it has been a very, very interesting one indeed. We will be moving on in the end, after what has been an impressive race in Miami, to a very, very good, sort of intense track, shall we say, in Mexico. The long straights that we expect to bring some intense racing. From myself, Brett, and the rest of the team here at TPS, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Goodbye.